With the introduction of Checkmate, now more than ever, there is a demand for new... With the introduction of Checkmate, players have found themselves With the introduction of Checkmate, build demand is at an all-time... Oh, come on! Welcome to Stupid Builds, where I will show you some stupid builds. Some of these builds are our own creation, some are from our livestream chat, but all of them are stupid because of how strong they secretly are. It's amazing what a little tender loving care will do to the health of PvP. Barring the DDoS attack, the player population has never seemed more energized to engage in Crucible. It's fantastic! So let's get some funny builds in your hands to make the other team sad. Oh, actually, before we launch into this, please take a moment to adjust your eyes to the discrepancy in this graph. Not that we don't appreciate your viewership, but we would appreciate you just a little bit more if you clicked subscribe. Alright, let's get on with it, eh? I have not had the appropriate server RNG to get Necrochasm. However, the Eidolon ally has proven to be a bit of a sleeper choice, especially amongst Titans. This build was clobbered together mostly by accident, but what we had inadvertently built was the living embodiment of a slap across the face. In neutral, the Eidolon will kill targets at about 0.77 seconds, at ranges pushing 20 to 30 meters due to its rangefinder and perpetual motion roll. This, combined with its very easy-to-see sights, allows this weapon to throw hands with even the biggest of meta-champions with the confidence of a drunk Australian on St. Patrick's Day. And, thanks to its intrinsic trait, you will have some opportunities to sprinkle in a touch of crowd control into your killing sprees. The weapon is a well-rounded tool. It's never bad anywhere, but it's also not fantastic at anything either. But you already were likely aware of this, weren't you? So what? What makes this Titan build so special? May I introduce the ACT-0 feedback fence? Recently reworked and strangely unexplored, especially for PvP, the ACT-0s now grant you access to armor charge stacks on top of its pre-existing melee shenanigans. Not bad, right? But a little known fact is that with your mods and perks stacked for melee regeneration and armor charge capacity, you can get infinite melees. But this is impractical for PvP, right? Perhaps. But you know what isn't impractical? Making Eidolon ally into a long-range guardian party popper. Indeed, the Eidolon ally's intrinsic trait can become a hack-eyed version of chain reaction, with how many melees we will volley at our foes. If we get even one melee kill, we can get a 15-second window to bring some kaboom. We are free to run any exotic we want, but the build creator had me use a Black Talon, of which I never touched. To complement the short-distance terror of the auto rifle, I opted for an arc sniper. The sniper was the Adorn, with a simple snapshot sight, lower zoom adaptive sniper. So in other words, you need no more imagination than EA's marketing department. Do what you know will net you some profits. Although I could easily see an argument for a more close-quarter special weapon, like a shotgun. We are in people's faces punching them silly already, so maybe a little extra lead wouldn't hurt. Even if you aren't a Titan, this build was amazingly fun and well-rounded to play. Made better by how this build is ready to go for Checkmate 2 because of the primary weapon focus. If you want a shot at the infinite melees, you will need triple melee kickstart on your arms, Reaper on your cloak, stacks on stacks, and 2 charged up mods. However, I think going for a more standard mod setup will operate smoother for most players. The subclass of choice was Strand, Banner of War, and Flechette Storm. Because I was dishing out punches like a top-dollar Mike Tyson impersonator, I recommend pairing your build with a grappling grenade. This saved my shiny metal butt more times than I would like to admit, and it also doubles as a way to close the gap. This build might become my go-to for Strand Titan. Truly fantastic, even if it's mostly fist forward. If you aren't a Titan, dust off the gloves and give this a try, and let me know in the comments below if it did for you what it did for me. 37 Commando Pros out of 12 true combos. Warlock PvP builds tend to require a bit more in-depth understanding of how the game works compared to their Hunter or Titan counterparts. This isn't to say that one is better than the other, but rather that these builds tend to be more resistant to meta changes. But often they come from a history of causing trauma, so I guess I need to ask you. Do you want to trigger some PTSD? If so, grab the Dead Messenger and your Arc Warlock, and some of you are already in the fetal position, sorry, and an auto rifle. Take a moment to remind yourself as to why the Warlock's slide melee got nerfed, and then promptly forget about it as you clear an entire flag of enemies with the Dead Messenger into Lightning Surge combo. This 1-2 combo of grenade shot into melee is still a fantastic tool to remind your enemy team about the cardinal sin of don't bunch up. And as it turns out, we were even forced to run this setup with the Kvashtov. But despite the obvious lack of efficacy from our primary, guess what? This combo still nukes anyone who fails to halt your electric slide. We can't ignore this ability's nerfs, but we have tools to mitigate it. Necrotic grips. These gauntlets will add a pinch more damage from our initial wave of destruction, guaranteeing a kill on any resilience, albeit requiring them to cook a little bit. The necrotic grips will poison all targets damaged by your melee attacks, and will cause them to tick for about 5 damage over 2 or 3 seconds. This is great for even your regular melee attacks, as it halts their regeneration by pecking on their health bar like a mosquito. If I were given the ability to pick a more reasonable primary, I think I would choose either an SMG or a medium-ranged hand cannon. The SMG would play better around my aggressive pushes, while the hand cannon would allow me some mix-up options while dueling. For aspects and fragments, try this with Electrostatic Mind for quicker ability regeneration and Spark of Instinct, Recharge, Momentum, and Frequency for more of the same. Timing is the biggest challenge of this build. If your opponent suspects your approach, you will often find yourself sliding into a coffin, but if not, it's a surefire way to send the entire lobby into an early retirement with a well-timed press of a button. What fun! I will give this 3 Fonzies out of 3 Michael Jacksons. Hunters don't seem like the class built to lock down lanes, but as time has gone on, they continue to get handcrafted tools from Bungie themselves, basically demanding they enforce some invisible restraining order. Witherhoard isn't what anyone would call off-meta, but I'll be damned if it isn't one of the funniest ways to make an enemy take a seat. Witherhoard is a launchable skill check. If your opponents know how to move their 2 feet, this weapon will be a mild irritant. But if they struggle to not cosplay as a turret from Portal, they will die in some truly hysterical ways. Witherhoard is good and all, but it isn't good at standing on its own. It's like the mayonnaise of Destiny weapons. It spreads well, but no normal, sane person uses it with nothing else. This is why we make sure our Witherhoard lands eliminations, and pair it with the Renewal Grasp and a Duskfield Grenade. If you have ever used a magnifying glass to roast an ant, you will have an idea what it's like to watch someone try and escape this combo. Some can go from a calm and calculated person to the most irrational animal on the planet. It's great. Picking a secondary weapon can be hard for builds like these, but we opted for a Drang with Wellspring to get our Duskfields back more often. Our subclass ran everything we could get for grenade regeneration, and benefits such as shards and Touch of Winter. There isn't any reason to over-explain the subclass side of the build much. You know what we are trying to do to people. Your other aspect is up to you, but we decided to go for the Winter's Shroud for a burst of freezing when we dodged. If timed correctly, this can translate into a direct impact from your Witherhoard shot. So why not force the player to take what little time they have left to reevaluate what matters to them? I love a good violent and forced existential crisis. 2 Freuds out of 3 Nietzsches. Trivia time! What's the quickest way to trigger a sweaty PvP player? If you answered damage resistance, congratulations! You've just won a fabulous new prize! Found in the deep recesses of your vault lies a weapon type most are simply too virgin to not try: the Glaive. While yes, its lack of hit scan can be frustrating to use, its shield offers the highest source of damage resistance in the game. This build was so much fun! Good gracious, I enjoyed this. Solar Warlock, our Glaive friend, and the Wings of Sacred Dawn. Because both the Glaive Shield and the aim-down sight buttons are bound to the same trigger, you can have both the Glaive's insane damage resistance stacked on top of the Wing's inherent damage resistance, to make your Warlock into the Destiny version of an armored military helicopter. You can see the footage clear as day. This isn't hard to understand. But there feels like there is something wrong with this, doesn't it? Like this should somehow be a bannable offense. our glaive ran tilting at windmills and unstoppable force. If we were able to stag some more damage bonuses, it could be possible for us to one-bang with our glaives, so try this with Ember of Torches for your fragments. My primary was a Dire Promise with Snapshot and Rangefinder, but the world of hand cannons has been so thoroughly explored, use whatever you prefer. I ran my Warlock with a healing setup, as I was able to slap my grenade on the ground before jumping into the fray, combining my damage resistance and healing together to make me a god among men. I mean, good lord, just look at them struggle to kill me! I wasn't even panicking, I was laughing way too hard at their fear! This video has been chocked full of great builds so far, and this is no exception. 4 enemy VTOLs out of 5 Predator missiles inbound. Most people click away from the video at this point. I'm sure we could be more entertaining, but as a treat to all of you who stick around to this point, this build might be my favorite from the list. Do you all remember the Witch Queen class-specific glaives? Likely not, but Bungie did give us an easier path to acquiring them, and never has that been more useful than for this build. The Titan's Glaive grants us a special shot that creates a miniature Ward of Dawn when at max glaive energy. In one of the spicy clips we showed you, you can make a Ward of Dawn into a legendary double bubble. But what about every other time? A little forgotten fact about this glaive is that it works with the Helm of Saint 14. This means that we can get a refreshable overshield and a blinding zone of protection without a super. As a Warlock player at heart, this has got to be one of the coolest hidden interactions in the game. This does have the problem of being a glaive, but for the payoff of a super on demand, I think it's well worth it. This build is still very early in development. Heck, we barely had decided on a primary, so please leave any ideas for this build in the comments section. For your aspects, you are going to run the classic offensive Bulwark and Bastion combo. I ran my fragments for increased overshield duration, and vigilance for overshield on kills while critical. I can't wait for the servers to let me experiment on more people like you. Thank you for subscribing. Bless your faces, and deuces.